always found interesting about haunted houses, unlike most any other medium, like television or movies or literature, those are all recorded and documented in so many ways and accessible. Haunted houses make sure there's some people take video, but there's not a lot that's been professionally done, or even a lot of amateur productions that have been done to document the history. Like, sure, we know certain things. We know the JCs were a big part in the formation of the haunted house industry. But if you don't go to them, if you don't work at them, the things that take place at them are widely unknown to people. And it's primarily, these stories are passed on through an oral tradition, unlike so many other mediums. And that's the thing that I think is so cool about haunted houses. And it's almost uniquely American. I mean, this is where these type of attractions really gained a foothold and exploded.
There was there was one time, I think it was at Massacre Manor. There was all these like football players. They were probably 10 years old, and I went out to use the bathroom, in full costume. So of course I'm harassing the kids as I'm going along. And there was this one kid. He was at the front of the line. I'm terrorizing him. So I go back up to the haunt. It was, you were working next to me, I think. And he comes into the room. I jump out, but when I jump out, I get down on his level because I knew he was coming. He nailed me right in my eye, went right through my mask. And I was just kind of like, I seen stars. I had to go behind the group and get an ice pack for my eye. That is quite, like...
That is something you risk, in this sort of business, I guess.
Now, did you say it was in Q Line, or you work in a room?
No, I was working a room. That was back before I did Q Line. And it was more like a hallway, I guess, like a wide hallway. But yeah.
So the ice pack became part of your costume for the rest of the night?
It wasn't even an ice pack. It was a Arnold Palmer tea. Because we didn't have ice packs. So I'm in the ticket booth, and I have my mask, pulled forward. And I got the tea in between my mask and my face. And I'm just kind of like...
Well, that's one thing, like working the queue line, that I'm conscious of is, I mean, I'm not a small person, but I'm not overly large. There's certainly people much bigger than me, and sometimes they come through. But, when I'm in character, especially the Vermin character, he's not afraid of anybody. But, constantly reading people's body language, and there's been a few times where I could tell, whether they were just on edge or they were just typically just kind of like a jerk. You know when to back off someone because they're probably gonna take a swing at you. But I remember one time there was a group. There's probably 8 of them or so, and they was almost like formed in a circle, and they were mid conversation. I don't remember what they said, but I just broke right into the middle of the group and hijacked their conversation. And as I was rambling, it was the strangest thing because there was 2 tracks playing in my head. One's Vermin saying whatever he's saying to insult these people. And the other one saying, you just put yourself right in the middle of a group of people and you're insulting them. You're insane. This is not going to end well. But this Vermin went with it, and that all worked out fine.
The thing to learn that I'm still working on, because I have a lot less experience as a haunt actor than anybody at this table, is just how to respond to people's critiques and stuff. I'm thinking of one time I was working in, it was Kindred taxidermy room, and I was trying this little spiel with little pigs, with this little piggy had roast beef and all of that. So it always ended with this little piggy went wee all the way to the slaughterhouse, and this one kid just responded too real, man. It's one of those things I could have had a good comeback to that. I just didn't get to it fast enough. Of course, I thought of it a minute later.
There was, we get a lot of groups on a Friday or Saturday night. It's, a group of teenagers. This is a large group. And this was one of those moments where I had wondered if I had pushed it a little too far. Not the story you're probably thinking of, Danny, where I had to be physically restrained. I'll let you tell that. So there's this large group of high school students, and they're all paired up, boyfriends, girlfriends, and then there's just that one kid. He's with the group, but he's not with anybody.
Right.
Dressed all in black, and I'm in my head, I'm like, what is this kid doing in this group? He looks like the quintessential school shooter. So That's what I ran with. I began referring to him as Shooter. Everything I said, I would bring back to him and say, "What do you think about that, Shooter?" And they'd all erupt in laughter. And he was laughing too, but by the end of it, because it was earlier in the night and there wasn't many groups and I just kind of honed in on them, I thought, I gotta say something to this kid to let him know that this was all a joke, because I don't want to read in the newspaper he's actually gone into
You're in his manifesto
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, so just before they went in, I actually said to him, I was like, "You're a good sport, Shooter." And into the house they went.
Okay, so let me tell you a little story. We're in the queue line. I'm doing my Dr. Giggles spiel. Joel's doing the whole Vermin thing. And I've noticed throughout the course of the year that Vermin gets a little nasty sometimes, like just pick on somebody. And this guy, who shall remain nameless, he was, I think, wasn't he by himself?
Yes, that was the whole thrust of the torment.
Yeah, he looked a little, different. And Vermin just was going ham on this guy. I thought he looked like he was gonna cry. Like, he was just kind of like, wasn't saying a whole lot, and I started yelling at Vermin from across the room, of course, as Dr. Giggles, and I eventually had to go up and actually grab Joel by the arm, and I was like, "Enough, brother." This guy, I thought he was gonna cry.
Well, okay, so what she's leaving out, she wasn't initially in the room.
I was not.
This person later became a member of the JCs.
Oh, really?
Yes. I didn't know him at the time. Not that would have changed anything. But yeah, he shows up by himself. And then I'm giving it to him, and he's attempting to make comebacks, but they were awful.
Well,
It was like he was purposely throwing me softballs, and I couldn't not swing.
He liked the way you were giving it to him.
Yeah, I guess so. And eventually I kind of turned it into a routine for the whole room. Each new group who would come in, I would introduce them to this guy and then insult him in the process. And it got to be like an episode of Jerry Springer. Like
was
with
bad.
each insult, people were like, "Oh!" So finally, Danny comes in the room and she starts screaming, "That's enough! That's enough, brother!" And I remember looking at her, and I was like, I knew she was serious, but I just looked at her and smiled. I was like, "Oh, it's enough!" And I just plowed right ahead. She marched across the room, grabbed me by my shoulders. She didn't just take my arm. She grabbed my shoulders and slammed me against the wall. Then I gave a crazy laugh and I peeled out of the room.
I think I remember that.
I don't recall doing that.
Well, it happened.
And that night, you saved that young man's life.
I felt so bad for him. Don't get me wrong, I'm the first one to slaughter somebody if they come in, but it was literally I don't even know how long he was teasing the guy.
Probably a good 10 minutes.
Yeah. It was enough that I poked my head in, seen it happening, walked back out, do queue line, come back, it's still going on, and like you said, he had the whole crowd with him. And this guy's by himself, and I'm just like, oh man. I felt bad for him. That was the one time my conscience came into play, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, I'm picturing you having a little internal debate, it's so good, but the guy's in pain. I gotta step in.
I watched him from across the room. I was just like, nope, it's enough.
I didn't see the same thing she was seeing in that body language. He seemed completely non-threatening to me, and he didn't seem like he's ready to weep to me.
He looked like he was gonna. His body language. I don't know what you were seeing, but from across the room, I was like, yeah, he's not too happy.
He's a grown man. Children, I'll back off on when they start to get legitimately upset. Adults, typically, I'll just change it a bit. I'll use more of the humor. I mean, that's what I was already doing on him, but if I can see someone visibly shaking or they're starting to well up with tears, I'll try and be more humorous so that they don't lose it. Kids, I'll back off on. I mean, I'll still stay in character and do the voice and everything, but let them know that it's gonna be okay. But adults, no.
You may have discovered a new fetish, people that go to haunted houses just to be verbally abused in public.
Verbal masochists.
Yeah.
Verbal masochists.
We can charge extra for that.
the beration room.
Your parents are really disappointed in you and your life choices.
That would hurt me. I'd be like, ouch.
Ryan can work in that room.
Your neighbor really thinks you should trim your lawn up a little better next summer.
It's funny that the tone of voice you're using right now, there was a couple of nights at Sin where you worked the Gacy haunt, and that was the tone. I remember I was in a different room, and I heard you casually ask somebody, what did you say to him? You just posed some real basic question. It was creepy, but it was, I don't know if you were just like, hey, you enjoy going to Little League games or something of that nature. It's like, what a weirdo.
No, you want to talk about weirdos? Let's talk about sin. Where I was doing my walkthroughs, making sure everybody was good, making sure everybody was, had water and whatnot. And I poke my head around the corner, and I see Vermin jumping up and down on the bed. And what was that? What room was that?
That was it.
Holmes.
No, it wasn't Holmes.
It was the Night Stalker room.
Yeah.
Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally poked my head around the corner. He's jumping up and down on the bed. I believe he was laughing maniacally, too. And I just kind of, brought my head back and walked the other way. And then I come back, and you were making people worship a troll.
Yeah.
Like one of those little troll dolls.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting night because I had come from work. We'd been working a football game. There'd been an incident. I had been worked up into a literal rage. Had to chase someone down. There was a confrontation. Lots of yelling. That's how I showed up. That was at the end of our night. I showed up brimming with genuine rage. And Sayla was giving people breaks. So whoever was working that room had to go to the bathroom or whatever. So she asked me if I could go in there until they got back. So that's the state I came in. I mean, I was so geared up to really harm someone. So I got on top of the bed and I was just jumping, because I had all this frenetic energy, just waiting and waiting. And I remember Grace, who was working Holmes, she would later tell me. Actually, she told the story during at the end of the night. Is one of the it's one of the stories. And she had actually come in the room and seen me jumping on the bed and then slowly back down the room, which I didn't notice her. But yeah, so the first group that came in, I was so worked up. Yeah, I forced them to worship a troll doll that was in the room. I hadn't worked the room before, so I was just had so much energy. I was like, well, I'm gonna do something a little different. So yeah, the first group that came was a group of 3. There's 2 girls and then the boy they were with, and he was not brave of heart. So he was the one that was forced on the ground. He worshipped a troll doll. That's what happens sometimes.
He actually did, though. That was the best part. He was. So let me pose this question. What's the weirdest room or spiel that you've done? Joel's got Muffy.
Yeah, Joel's got a lot.
Yeah, well, the weirdest. All right. So, most people who know me know that I've had depression for a long time. I think a lot of us have mental health issues that work at the haunted house. So sometimes one of my favorite things to do is drop in real pieces of my life. And you can see that look in people's eyes when they're kind of like...
He's not bluffing.
Right, I know this is an act, but that cut a little too close to home. It was late one night, I think it was at Sin. There was 2 kids in line. They were probably 15, 16. And I was in a mood, so I was going on about depression and this and that, and I started talking about being in therapy and all these different things about trying to fix myself, and the look in their eyes, it was like, there's something wrong with this guy. And that man, seeing that look in people's eyes, like, oh, I got him. That may have been among the most messed up things. Just sharing personal details about your life that they have no idea if it's true or not, but you can see in their head, like, this seems a little too real for me. That usually disturbs people, but I get a kick out of it.
That's all that matters.
It's not all that. It's not that weird, but it's out of character. One of the nights I was working the classic Halloween room, I think that's what we called it at Kindred.
The vintage Halloween.
The vintage Halloween, yeah. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with it, and that was the only time, or I maybe did it 2 nights, but it was sort of short notice. So I thought, well, I knew what Joel's original concept for it was, and kind of have some creepy old guy in a rocking chair and stuff.
Oh yes,
And
the original concept.
The original concept, and I think it had gone from one direction to another. But I was going to try to bring it back to it. So I thought, what can I do with that? So I had maybe an hour of preparation. So I looked up some just goofy Halloween jokes. I thought, well, if I can just tell one joke to people going through there, and just be some creepy old guy telling a joke. So, but I memorized. I had a list of 20, but I memorized 4 or 5 of them pretty well. So I thought, I'll be happy. I'll do my little performance, tell a joke. But sometimes I just didn't want to quit. So like people are like, well, one more, and just wait, I got one more. And so like it is so unlike me to do that. Like wait, I got to tell you one more. And most people didn't want to stick around.
What was I remember you telling me though, wasn't there a joke about Frankenstein?
Yeah, gosh, I don't remember. The only one I can think of was like, why can't ghosts have children? Because they have Halloweenies.
That was the one.
And I was trying to, judge my audience, and some jokes were more child appropriate than others. But.
Yeah, so I'd forgotten about the original concept for that room. I don't remember whoever sort of voted me down. Might have been like a sort of committee thing. But yeah, the original concept for this, we had this idea for this vintage Halloween room. It was always like, all right, it could look cool, but what's the scare? And they're like, I don't know, what is the scare? It's like, yeah, how about we just have this pervert old man, and he's sitting on a rocking chair, and he's got one of those old pumpkin buckets in his lap, and he just, he's like, come on over, get some candy. That was pretty much the shtick, and I don't know, certain people didn't want that to fly, I guess.
I don't know. I guess crossing the line for me at lockdown, my haunt was located in the outdoor area. It's in a maze, and there was always a lot of rain. It was really rainy that year, I remember, and I'd have to apply like fresh coats of blood before every haunt night. So, and the mask I was wearing that year was the uncle from Kindred, the guy on the front porch with brother or uncle.
Well, we named him. It was Uncle Cousin, I think is what we called him.
Oh, we can swear. Okay, that opens up a lot of. But anyway, it's a great prop, but as a mask, you have really limited visibility.
Yeah.
So in that particular haunt, I kept hitting my shins
I remember that.
on the beds that I'd built. So I kind of incorporated it into the act, and I started hitting my head on the particle board. I just started like beating, like I'd be at one end of the haunt, and someone would walk in, and I'd just be hitting my head against the wall, and they were like, I could always see people kind of hesitate, like, he's really hitting his head, like, and I mean the mask was big and poofy enough to where it wasn't really doing any damage, so I guess that was probably the one time that I maybe got a little too involved.
Well, one thing, I won't say I regret it, but I never did it again. One of the things I like to do, especially when it was slow, there's not many people in queue line or there's nobody, so I'd go in and out of the building looking to lure people in. And there was a group, I think they'd actually already gone through the house perhaps. But one strategy I like to do is I'll come out of the doors like a man on fire, and then the first person that looks at me, that's the I lock eyes and I like make a beeline toward him like I am just pissed. And this guy began to backpedal. I mean, as you guys know, Vermin's dressed in street clothes, ripped up jeans and a flannel, and people look at me like he might work here, but I'm not quite sure if he does. And he was one of those people who clarified. He's like, whoa, do you work here, man? Do you work here? And he started backing up, and I just went right at him, and then I went into some angry rant, and it was himself and two of his friends. It was another guy and then a girl, and I don't know how it built up to this, but I began tearing at my hair, and it hurt like hell. But I'm in the middle of this act in front of people, so I was like, I gotta keep going. And by the end of it, I had just tore out this enormous gob of my hair. So much so that the girl goes, is that real? And I was like, yeah, go on, take it. And she wasn't sure if she should or not, but she did. She took the pile of my hair and then gave it to her one buddy, and they went back and forth, like, is this real or not? After the moment I did that, I was like, I will never do that again.
I don't know. I would have to say the major, pushing things too far, doing something that's, I wouldn't say out of character for Dr. Giggles, but out of character for me was, do you remember that group of, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 kids? Well, they weren't kids, they were teenagers that had Daddy's Money.
Yeah. You talking about the kid from Grozio? Was
yeah,
that one?
the kid from Grozio.
Yeah.
So it was 2 guys and 2 girls.
Yep.
And the girls had said that the guys kicked them out of the car.
Yep.
And just, just being jerks.
It was weird. Yeah.
It was. So then these 2 guys show up, and they're being just
schmucks.
Yeah, I was saying, what's a good word to describe?
Like they were like entitled rich kids. It was actually shocking to see that level of aloofness, and well, they just seem naive to me. Like in the real world, yeah.
Yeah, he bragging about the car that his daddy bought him and
The
how
company his parents gave him, yeah.
he was, his daddy gave him a company, all this other stuff. And I was trying to get him to come in the house, and he just kept acting like he was too good.
Yeah, because we were gonna rob him at that point.
Well, it was me.
You and Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get him to come in, and these people are these two boys are just acting ridiculous. Well, it was the one in particular.
Yeah.
And they started acting like they were better than us. And he said something. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I lost it. And I went off on him, and I never broke character, but I told him in character what we did, why we did it, where all the money went. I lost it though. Like, it was so bad that I had to walk away and go into the building just to cool off.
Yeah, she actually asked him. She's like, "You ever missed a meal?" He's just like, "No."
Yeah, I lost. Because I mean, that's how I was raised. There was times when money was tight, and when we with the JCs, the money that we make goes to help the families with Christmas and all that. So it was like, for somebody to approach us and act like that, I lost it. I think that's the farthest. Well, close to the farthest I've ever pushed it. And
Well, that reminds me the previous year at Delirium, 2015. John and I were outside. John was Murray, and I was actually Gherkins that night. And so Gherkins is like a carnival barker. Looks like a ventriloquist dummy. So kind of fancy dress. There was this group of 4 or 5 teenage guys, and a few of them were being jerks. Like one even took out a lighter and. He was like flicking at our hands or whatever, and then they wanted John. That big weapon he used to carry as Murray? I don't know what to call it, but
I forget. He had a name for it.
Some stabbing implement. They kept saying like, "Oh no, maybe it was." I think they wanted to buy it. They asked him if it was for sale or whatever. Anyways, so they were jerks. A week or so later, I'm working one of the football games at the high school. Wearing jeans and a t-shirt and normal clothes. And I'm on my phone, and someone walks by me and goes, "Gherkins?" And I remember thinking, oh my God. I was shocked anyone could recognize me without all the makeup and because I wear like a top hat and a vest and the dummy makeup. And I remember thinking, all right, we're gonna mess with this person. So I don't look up. I still keep texting. And then he says it again, "Gherkins." So I look up, kind of confused, and I was like, "Are you talking to me?" He's like, Yeah, you were at the hunt. You were Gherkin." And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh, I just thought." And then he weakly whimpered out, "Gherkins." And then he goes, "I'm sorry," and he walked away looking spooked as hell. And I remember thinking, I can't believe I just convinced him it wasn't me. That was cool. I mean, it was shocking that he even recognized me, but being able to convince him that he was mistaken, I was proud of that. Jerk.
Glad you can stay in character even when you're not working at the hunt.
What fun would it have been had I been like, yeah, because he was a jerk to John. I wasn't gonna buddy up with him like, oh yeah, it was really fun interacting with you, jackass. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna make him go home and question his sanity, and that's what I hope he did.
Was the best way to get him, it sounds like.
I think it was.
Person is now locked up.
So this guy walks in. Jamie was working with him, and he looks like, wow, what was it? From
Let's set the stage a bit. He worked with Jamie, Danny's girlfriend, at their legitimate job, their day job, I should say, and a very interesting character. He came in talking about how he was sent from the Umbrella Corporation, so bit of a screw loose, and he wasn't like kidding. Like there was something going on in his head. Are you referring to what I told him he looked like?
Yeah, the character from Lord of the Rings.
Oh well, yeah. I said you look like Gollum if Gollum had.
Yeah.
So there's the foundation of the story.
So, throughout the whole, Vermin followed him through the house because I was distant, but I was poking in and out. And throughout the whole house, every room he would walk in and say he was sent from the Umbrella Company, da da da. I mean, the same spiel. And Vermin was just the whole time just beating him verbally. And
I was concerned for the safety of some
Having
of
an
the kids.
episode.
we were all, because I was hiding in the different rooms to watch him go through, and because Joel was behind him, but
Yeah, I went with him. I wasn't even trying to hide.
yeah, but and then he started singing the intro music for Resident Evil 7.
Yep.
And-
Something about Aunt Rosie.
Yeah, Aunt Rhodey.
Aunt
Go and
Rhodey,
tell
yeah.
Aunt Rosie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just kept turning around. He kept getting in Joel's face. Kept, just being weird. So we finally got him through the house, and we're out front, standing, right in front of the old City Hall building.
Now remember though, he actually came through 2 times.
Yeah, but it was the second time that I gripped him up.
Was it the second time?
It was the second
Okay.
time. And we're all out front, and he's just pushing it way too far. And I think at one point, didn't he lick your nose?
Yes. Yeah, that was the thing. Like he kept getting closer and closer, and again, like I'm not breaking character. I'm like, you do whatever you want, and I kept warning him. I was like, you're gonna cross the line. You're gonna regret it. He got close. He had his tongue out. He got closer and closer and closer, and then he licked my nose. And I remember thinking, because I don't know him, but I knew of him. I'd been into his place of business. I can tell there's he's not all there. I thought, okay, I'm not gonna punch this guy because his life's bad enough. But immediately, Danny grabs him and just trucks him over to this car, slams him against the car, and that seemed to be the thing that let him know that wasn't acceptable. Because he goes, he liked the physicality. He goes, oh, that was awesome, and then he says, oh, did I take it too far? Did it? I'm like, yes, licking my face. It's a little too far.
And I said something to him as I was putting him up against the car, but yeah, I was done. Because at that point, he had harassed all the actors. I'm looking out for my own, and I know that Joel could take him no problem, but it wasn't in Vermin's character as much as it is Dr. Giggles to
Right.
just straight up rough somebody up. And the only thing I regret is that there wasn't a larger group to witness that, because that would have been awesome. People going into the house, they would probably pee themselves.
There's so many things I regret we didn't have cameras on, and that was one of them. Now, I think that may have been the first time, because I think it was the second time he came back. After he got through the house, he told Sayla he wanted to show me, and this is not a euphemism, his lightsaber.
No, because it was the same time.
Was it the same
Yeah.
night? Well, so I think I'd gone back in, then they call me back out. He produces one of those legit, expensive lightsabers, and he's clearly practiced. He's doing his Jedi Knight moves, and I'm sitting there. You guys remember that, that jagged piece of wood I carried around at Kindred as Vermin? I have it at my side, and I'm watching him do all his little spinning moves, and I think to myself, it would be a great exclamation point on this whole scene, is when he walks up and he does one of his twirls, if I just take my stick and shatter it. And I remember thinking, this is where, my actual self kicked in. I'm like, you can't do this to this poor guy. He probably spent 2 weeks worth of paychecks on that thing, so as much as I wanted to do it, and it would have been hilarious, I couldn't do it. I just let him do his little moves, and I was like, oh, that's real fancy.
Good that you do have boundaries.
I think he had a thing for Vermin.
Probably.
Well, he
did.
licked my face, so I think that's a safe bet.
He had a thing for sharp objects too. That was the most suspense I actually had as an actor working in taxidermy. Joel comes rushing in, as close to being out of character as you usually are, and just said, "This next guy is actually crazy as hell. Have fun with it." And then it was 30 seconds before he came in. I'm like, "Wow, what is this guy gonna be?" He was pretty nuts, but it wasn't that bad. But yeah, he was like, "Oh, is your knife sharp?" And I was like, "Mm-hmm. It's really sharp."
Strange character.